What's up, guys? It's Bo here again, and in this entry, I'm going to try and talk about Logic and Emotion Part 3. Right. Originally, I had wanted to write a script on this, but I haven't got the script. And I noticed recently that I've been writing a lot of scripts for things, and it does help me kind of hone my message and to ensure that what I'm saying is accurate. But then I also noticed that I was losing sight of the original intention for these vlog entries, which is basically to show people that they can trust in their intuition so they can say the right thing without, having to resort to, script or something. And, just talk from the heart and for that to be valuable. Because we have a fear, a massive fear. This is why most people are scared of public speaking. To speak from the heart and without, any guidance. And even with guidance, a lot of people are still scared of it. But, okay. Logic and emotion, let's go. Let's see how this goes. The premise of this entry was to basically give you the perspective, further perspective of logic, the process of logic versus the process of emotion. Well, intuition, you could say. But yeah, logic v emotion. Essentially, how life works is that life is can be perceived as energy in motion, emotion, but life is essentially energy that's moving, right? And everything is energy, right? Thoughts are energy, sound waves are energy, this iPod is energy, I am energy, like a complex collection of energies. There are loads of different types of energies, flying around, whizzing around in the universe and in the existence as a whole. But essentially, that's what life is from an energetic kind of perception. So, like horizontally, if we perceive horizontally, essentially, like the universe is just energy, right? So it's always in motion. Whereas we have this other process, logic, which is basically it deals with the linear. It deals with the symbolic, right? And us humans, we evolved in such a way that we developed this ability, right? So I'm going to use an analogy. I hope this analogy is going to turn out okay. But essentially, it's like life is a stream. Like it's constantly moving. It's always moving. And at some point, human beings learn how to swim, right? So if at some point we basically intended for the ability to swim in a specific direction in the stream, right? So logic allows us to basically manipulate things, and have a certain grasp on them that is usually not attainable because life in reality is just it's just motion, and it's just endless motion. There's no kind of way of kind of holding on to it and grasping it and saying, okay, this is one thing, and then moving, that kind of thing. And logic is what we developed such that we can do this. We can basically take static images of reality and use that to build, to create, in ways that are kind of very effective, So I hope you're still following me. So essentially, the difference between logic and emotion is that emotion is tied in with energy, right? And energy, as I said, is in constant motion, right? Energy never stops. It's always moving. So our emotions, our feelings, basically allow us to feel the constant motion of energy, right? And obviously to interact with that energy, ourselves. So we interpret energy and we also emanate energy, and that basically, in this interaction with this, everything is just interacting with everything else. And logic is basically a snapshot, right? Logic is basically a snapshot, a state of energy that we store in our minds. And that is the difference, right? Another analogy is basically that, a sound wave is basically, it's like a continuous wave, right? And often, I did a course in like sound engineering, so like, but essentially, that a lot of that is usually the resolution of that wave, that sound wave, is said to be infinite, right? An analog sound wave has infinite resolution, which means that it's like perfectly curved. There's no imperfection. No matter how much you zoom into that sound wave, it will never kind of it will never kind of pixelate, right? And so it will always be the same no matter how how far out you zoom or how far in you zoom. Whereas digital sound basically is a sampling of the sound wave. So what it does is it takes snapshots of of states within that waveform, and it stacks them back together to simulate the sound wave, and that's how digital sound works, right? It's snapshots. It's the same with like film, like digital film. Any kind of thing that any kind of digital thing that emulates like motion. Right. So essentially, that is what logic is. It's a snapshot, and the way that we basically use our logic is to take these snapshots and to piece them together to arrive at a logical conclusion or something like that. Right. So essentially, there are pitfalls. Right. There are pitfalls with logic. It's like if you were to basically take the digital waveform of sound. Bear with me, I'm just kind of speaking my mind here. But essentially, it is mistaking a digital sound waveform as being an analog waveform, right? And the pitfall that exists for logic is that we may run out of information, right? Because unlike motion, the nature of the universe, which is just very fluid and natural, it just is, right? When it comes to logical analysis of that, right, you have to sample it, right? Your logic, your logical mind is sampling reality. So it's taking snapshots of reality. And so there is a limit to how much it can process, right? So when we stop feeding our logical mind with information, so if we're not constantly taking snapshots of reality, we can very easily make misjudgments because of lack of information, right? And this is like essentially the very, very common pitfall of just relying on logic and ignoring energy, sensitivity, and our emotions, is that we start to make bad predictions, bad judgments, essentially. And yeah, so we start to basically go around in circles, if you see what I mean, right? When we get stuck in our heads, right, and we get in a state where we stop basically supplying our logical minds with new information, right? Basically, when we get to a point when we think that we know it all, right, and therefore we stop feeding our logical minds with information, right, then we get stuck, right? We get stuck. And we don't know why we're stuck. Because when we're insensitive to energy, we cannot feel, anything else aside from. So we cannot feel for something new. We cannot feel for something that is happening right now. Instead, we rely on our snapshots, which are basically projections of reality. They're snapshots, and we use them to project into our reality. Whereas the truth of our reality may not be what has been projected in our mental projections, our logical projections, our snapshots. So basically, the importance is to what I'm saying is that we have to tap into our sensitivity. So this is another perspective for why we should tap into our sensitivity. It's because our sensitivity is what allows us to basically perceive reality as it is, right? And to move through reality in a way that is natural, in a way that is beneficial for us. Because the fact is that the logical mind has limitations in terms of how much information it can basically turn over, right? And when we stop feeding it with information, we start to basically go in circles, and we start to stagnate in our movements, right? Because so ultimately, logic is a very bad way to facilitate movement, right? It's a very, very bad way to facilitate movement. It's good for optimizing, certain aspects of our lives, right? Logic is very good for that. But in terms of just generally, to facilitate movement, we can't rely on our logic, right? It's just too limited. We have to dive back in to our sensitivity, our energy, our emotion, and consult that so that we know, we feel, where to go next. We feel what is here right now, and that allows us to make the right decisions, right? So, let's see if there's anything else I can add to that. I hope you guys are following this. Like I said, I'm just kind of riffing here. I don't know why I'm doing this. Praying. Do I have anything on my notes? Yeah, I think essentially I've covered everything that I wanted to say in this entry. So yeah, my invitation to you, to give you a practical thing you can do now, in application of this, is to tap into your sensitivity. If you're in a situation in life where you feel stuck, or you feel like you don't know where to go, or you feel like there's a disconnect between how you feel or where you are in life versus where you think you should be in life, then know that there is an error that is being made because you're over relying on your logic. Basically, you're over relying on the snapshots, and you're using those to project into the future or into the present. But those snapshots are wrong. They're out of date, right? They're not accurate in terms of how reality is right now, right? So you need to basically drop those, right? If it's not working, drop them, and then dive into your sensitivity so that you can basically, when you dive into your sensitivity, you get more information, right? Well, the first thing is that you feel the present moment, so you're then able to basically make an accurate judgment, or you can then do something that is in line with what the present moment actually is, and also you can then use your sensitivity to fuel your logic. So you can use it to draw out new projections, new snapshots, right? So that's my invitation. So kind of in summary, I guess, so essentially, your logic has limitations in that it is a sampling process, right? It takes snapshots, and then when we project those snapshots into the future, they might not be accurate to what we are feeling. Well, the thing is, if you take snapshots and you're not kind of you're not referring back to the source, which is your feeling, right? Which is your connection with the present moment and movement of energy, then you're gonna make the wrong decisions, right? So at some point you're going to have to tap into your sensitivity to basically validate, to course correct, basically, like what you're thinking mentally through your logic. So I'm gonna end it here. I hope that was helpful, and can't wait to watch this back. I shall see you guys in the next entry. Peace.